Good evening to everybody. All right, welcome to the Mind of Loughridge. I hope everybody is doing well and hope your day is going well. I want to talk about something, and I'm really um, feeling like I'm about to just make this a part of a discussion. Um, Apart. And I think it is so important, um, in life that we have this conversation. I don't necessarily, um, I don't necessarily subscribe to, the mindset of um, racism to the extent of not talking about certain things and um, not, discrediting anybody else's history, anybody else's anybody else's challenges. But I do want to talk about something tonight, and I think it's just something that I think we really need to deal with it. Um, it's like everybody can talk about different things. They can talk about um, those who are Caucasian. You can talk about Asians. You can talk about the Latino community. And in some aspects, depending on the conversation, you can even have a conversation specifically, on immigration. You can have a conversation that's centered on, um, you know, um, LGBTQIA plus conversations. I mean, there's so many different conversations that can come up. But at times it seems to me, and this may sound very subjective, but sometimes it appears to me that whenever you have a conversation that's dealing around blackness, um, when you have a conversation that's centered around blackness and different things of that nature, to me, it just seems um, as if there's a whole different perspective, a whole different level, a whole different angle, a whole different allotment, um, or choice of how people are really going to deal with things. And so I want to talk about something, and that's why I entitled this "Can We Talk?" Because there are some things that have been happening, and I don't know if it concerns you, but it's a high level of concern for me personally. And I think there comes a point in time that you got to have conversations, and there's some conversations that you're going to have. And when you refuse to have these conversations, I won't say who I had a conversation with. I had a conversation with somebody, and it was very challenging because the person said to me, you know, well, do you think we should have these conversations? Seem like the more we have the conversation is the more that we have battles. And the more we have these type of conversations is the more we get pushed against. And I said we have to keep having these conversations because nobody else seems to have the hardest times in dealing with themselves or dealing with pressures like us as Black people. And, like I said, and there's many arguments that people can have with that. And that's why I said it may come off subjective, but my endeavor, my attempts always is to try to be as objective as I can. But there comes points in time that not even come off as bias. But when you begin to look at the plight of Black people and you begin to examine, you begin to see a lot of the challenges and whatnot that happens. You have people from the church background, whether religious or secular, that some people feel that certain people should not be part of certain conversations. But I think at the end of the day, I believe there are many major conversations that we need to have. And so I want to talk about some things. Like, for example, I said this where I ministered Sunday, when I ministered at Soul Enrichment. The job of the church, and I'm going to say this right here, it's to try to be as community oriented as possible. To try religious leaders, whether, and I'm going to say this for this point, whether they are Muslims, whether they are Mormons, whether they are Jehovah Witness, Roman Catholic, or whatever. There are points and times that we have to make sure that we are dealing with situations within our communities, and there has to be a balance. The P's have to come together. Right now, I'm gonna say the preachers and the police and the preachers, and I believe these are conversations that we really, really, really need to get into, and because there is a separation, there is this disagreement, there is this hardening angle that is there and is prevalent in our world today. And I believe we need to have conversations on sounds of blackness. And so I'm going to deal with a particular situation last. I won't say what it is, but I want to get into it. Like, let's take, for example, I stumbled on this accidentally, and not knowing that this person has been incarcerated for 28 years. 28 years of his life pretty much gone. And very disturbing to come to the knowledge that somebody's life has been tremendously altered, has been tremendously changed, that this individual literally, if you will, has had two sisters die while he was incarcerated. His mother passed while he was incarcerated, as well as, I believe, an uncle passed while he was incarcerated. And when you think about it, it's ooh, it's a disturbing situation when you really ponder on it. And you're saying, well, what are you talking about? I don't know if you're familiar with Clarence Moses L. This particular gentleman was put in jail, and he was put in jail because he was accused of sexual assault. This lady, the victim said that she was assaulted by this particular black male. She was sexually assaulted. She was brutally assaulted, and all of this. And as history would reveal later on, something very disturbing happens. I'm gonna jump around and just go here. A person wrote him a letter by the last name of Jackson. Person writes him a letter, and Jackson says, man, I'm paraphrasing, I'm reaching out to you. Most importantly, to say I'm sorry for what you're going through. And then secondly, here it is, because, you didn't do what you did. He says, I did it. So a gentleman opens up and confesses via a letter to say that you didn't rape this woman, I did. Now, I think the attorney said that is an impossible situation because, watch this, the statutes of limitations for this particular rape case had reached. Right. So now it's like, okay, somebody is just saying whatever to try to get him freed. But there were some other things that was troubling. And I'm going to leave the one I believe carries the weight of being a little bit more troubling than some other aspects. And that is the simple fact of, that in this particular situation, that police have been accused and found or accused of destroying, mishandling, not turning in evidence that carried this man's DNA, all right, let me take that back, that did not carry his DNA, that would have freed him. Are y'all hearing me? That would have freed him. I'm going to say that one more time. That would have freed him then of the accusations that have been put against Clarence Moses L. And that's a problem because, and so there was other evidences according to new evidence, new information that has shown up that this man for about 28 years of his life suffered based upon an accusation. And then here's the thing that really got me is the fact that it has been reported that this particular lady who accused him said that she was awakened out of her sleep. But according to reports, this lady was heavily medicated. This lady said that she saw this man's face. I want y'all to hear this. Saw this man's face in a dream. Okay, let that sit there for a little bit. She saw this man's face in a dream. And because of the dream, she ended up accusing this man of sexually assaulting her. And because of a dream, not reality, not evidence, not any DNA, not any evidence of semen or anything of this nature, this man goes to jail because this woman, I guess and I'm not trying to speak, slight of it, but when she thought she was Martin Luther King Jr., she said, I had a dream. And in this dream, it was supposed to have been this man named Clarence Moses. The evidence does not support that it was him. So then if somebody it says, I did it, whether that you believe he lying or not, you're supposed to investigate it. Why is this person still in jail? Why is the person who is accused still in jail based upon, once again, a dream? A dream. Not reality, y'all. A dream. A dream. A dream. He's sent to prison because a woman dreamed, or as somebody say dreamt, I don't know if that's a word or not, that back in 1988, I'm looking at Instagram and looking back at y'all. All right. Wrongly convicted of rape after a woman accused him, said she had seen his face in her dream and instantly concluded that he was her attacker and the rapist. Okay, so let me clear up something. So this put Clarence Moses to be sentenced to 48 years in prison for a woman who had a dream that somebody raped her. Okay, I want y'all to hear that. So she said she had been beaten, raped in her home. Man broke in her house at 2:15 in the morning, punched her in her face, sexually assaulted her. So she says everything happened in the dark, and since she wasn't wearing her glasses, she wasn't able to see his face. So according to the report, while she was in While she was in the hospital, the woman precisely stated, I'm reading it, that the person who raped her was a black man with wavy hair. Initially, she mentioned the names of 3 men who were at the party and were possible suspects. She was able to remember their names because she had been drinking with them. She mentioned LC, Earl, and Darnell. However, she did not accuse Clarence of anything or mention his name. So 2 days later, the story changed. In absence of any other evidence aside from the result of her body, T.S. proceeded to identify Clarence as the person who raped her. While struggling with broken facial bones and the loss of vision in one eye, she insisted she had seen his face in a dream. Convinced about a dream, the woman insisted that Clarence was her attacker. So of course, people are gonna go back. So he must have done it because he had 2 previous convictions of burglary and robbery. Okay, so of course, this is when, and this is what I tell people all the time, when we as a black person start doing some shady stuff, and we have the history of something, they're going to go back in history, they're going to go back and check your history, and they're going to look at it and be like, yeah, this person has a history of this, as if some people cannot make changes in their life and not do some things that they've done in the past. So the mindset was that this particular individual, I want y'all to catch this, must have committed this burglary crime because this person has a history of doing these type of crimes. He has a history of this. So he tried to appeal, but he was unsuccessful rather. Okay. So while in prison, he was able to raise $1,000 along with other prisoners for a DNA test. He also got court orders for biological evidence because he wanted to clear his name. Watch this. So the sample test was thrown away by Denver police before it even got tested. Even though the label was written, do not disturb or do not destroy. Then LC. Now I want you to remember that. So there was LC that she accused. There was, who else did I say? LC, Earl, and Darnell that were accused of this. LC Jackson, in a letter that I aforementioned, he confessed that he had raped the woman at night. The note said, and I quote, I really don't know what to say to you, but let's start by bringing what was done in the dark to the light. I have a lot on my heart. So that letter was enough to bring a court hearing during which Jackson admitted that he was having sex with the woman. He hit her face. So evidence proved that what was also done at Jackson's saliva sample revealed that his blood type was the same as that for the analysis, here it is, of the rape kit. So by the time Clarence finds out about Jackson, he had been in jail 28 years of his sentence. Okay, now I'm bringing this up because I think it's very important to really catch the point of what is happening in our country and what is happening. So I'm going to jail, not because you have evidence, not because you have proof, but because somebody had a dream. And then you have evidence to support that the evidence is LC. One of the people she originally said, but because I had a dream, now I see him. Now this is the person. This is what I'm talking about. And so now this person been in jail 28 years of his 48. Half of his sentence was spent in jail. Never got a chance to see his mother again. His children are grown because when he went into prison, his children were little babies or little kids at the time. So the majority of his life in jail was the majority of his kids' life. So now when he's going home to, I think, the children, I think he has a brother that's living or something like that. But the point being is, y'all see this? Because of a dream. Because of a dream. And evidence. This is in Denver. In evidence. And evidence of behavior. Evidence of things that is happening to our own. And then we look at it like, oh my God, like what's going on? This is sad. It's disheartening. It's irritating, and it brings you to a high level of indignation because you're like, what in the world is happening? What is going on? We're still doing this after all these many years. After celebrating a black president and celebrating a black vice president, and after having all these wonderful, as a buddy of mine says, the black joys of us, it is sometimes difficult to celebrate consistently the black joys, because as soon as you begin to celebrate and are grateful for people like a Damar Hamlin who was going through and now he's recuperating, and as soon as you celebrate something like this, you find out about a person by the name of Clarence Morris L., who was falsely accused, sentenced of 48 years for something he did not do, and then you have people destroying evidence because they're looking at the history of stuff. Candace Owens, does that sometimes. Well, if we wouldn't have history, people have history. We all have a past. My thing is, don't hold me hostage to my past if that's not my present. Can we talk? So it's very disturbing when you look at these type of situations, and then, going back to Sound of the Blackness, then you have this other situation that's very disheartening. The young man, I don't know if you know the story of Sensei Reed. Okay, the story of Sensei Reed, this little boy who was shot by Craig Butler, Kreig Butler. I think his last name was Butler. 36-year-old white male shoots this little boy. According to witnesses, shot him several times. Why does he shoot this 12-year-old boy? You ready for it? He shoots this 12-year-old boy, he says, out of self-defense, and said that the boy had a gun. And he shot this young boy out of self-defense. This gentleman was arrested. This jerk was arrested for what he did. However, because of the new law, that is there in, I believe it's Florida. Okay, so if the person says I did it for self-defense, that was the burden used to be upon the one who said it was self-defense. The burden used to be upon that person, but now the burden is upon the prosecution. In other words, the prosecutor now has to prove or disprove that it wasn't self-defense. I'm shooting somebody and I'm saying it was self-defense, which is kind of connected, if you will, to the stand your ground law, which seems to me that it only benefits the individuals who are the shooters, if you will. It takes us back to the whole Trayvon Martin situation again, the whole George Zimmerman situation again. That whole mentality, that whole situation, and it is disturbing when you think about this. When you really consider the fact that this man, according to witnesses, got out of his truck, shot at this 12-year-old boy multiple times, got out of his truck, and fled the scene. And when he was picked up for murder charges. But when he opened up his mouth and said self-defense, guess what? They released him. They released him. But when you look at the autopsy, this boy was shot in his chest, this boy was shot in his hand, and then the police officers reach out to the mom, was like, well, why would you allow your son to have a gun? See, it almost kind of correlates, here we're in Georgia, all right, it almost kind of correlates to the Ahmaud Arbery situation again, where the victim who has the sound of blackness is now being accused of something. A 12-year-old boy. Now, for you deep wonders and those of you that be on so, well, you act like boys don't have guns. I'm not saying that young teenagers don't have guns, but in this situation, there was no evidence that was within the police report that this 12-year-old had a gun. So the police calls the mom, talking about why would you allow your 12-year-old to have a possession of a gun? But the police report reveals there was no evidence of a possession of a weapon on this boy. And so now, based upon the autopsy, it is now being looked upon as a homicide. There is something within us that ought to be frustrated and angry and mad, because say what you want to, and I'm one of them that said it. I'm going to be upset about, whether it's a police officer or some individual who's caught up in his white privilege that were trying to assassinate or had assassinated black people. And you can say all day long, but what about black on black crime? Well, one thing I know about black on black crime, they go to jail. Many of them are incarcerated. Many of them go to jail. Immediately they're in jail. Immediately they're in prison. Majority of them are in prison. And if they can't find them, they put them in jail. There's no way in the world, because the history does not match what I'm getting ready to say. There's no way in the world you can tell me. There's no way in the world you can tell me that if I was a lighter shade, and I'm not talking about a lighter shade of black, you can't tell me that if it was this wouldn't even be going on. Let the black man then shut a white kid. I said it. This would not have went down the way it is going down. Let the black man say, oh no, I shot that boy out of self-defense. He would have still been in jail. He would have still been in jail. On the self-defense in a state that says that is no longer the person who says I'm doing out of self-defense that has to bear the burden of proof. Now, no. It wouldn't have to be in that. It had to be, so now you got to prove it. It's not going to happen because it has not consistently been happening. We have all kinds of stuff that is happening. I'm looking at stuff across the board, and I'm saying, how does it go from this point to this point? And a lot of times I don't say things, but I'm trying to wait to see, videos and trying to see, their body cams. And then you have situations where people don't have body cams, and they're supposed to have them and don't have them on. And these things are supposed to be supposedly mandatory for when it's police oriented. Sound of blackness, y'all. In 2023, we're dealing with these type of issues. In 2023, we're still dealing with people. So I don't want to hear nobody say to me, well, Dwayne, Loughridge, Walking Bible Elder, I don't want to hear nobody talking about black on black crime, because when people get caught in our communities for shooting people, they go to jail quickly. In the words of T.I., expeditiously. It don't waste no time. But when it comes to others, it's a little bit different. No, it's not a little bit. It's a major difference. And if that does not disturb you, if that doesn't make you feel some type of way, I don't know what else to tell you. Sensei Reed, or Zay, as they call it, that boy should be alive. Shot in his own community, not too far from the apartment complex in which he dwelled. And this is what we do. Really? I wonder, how many people have used self-defense? And I tell people all the time, if someone come out and I'll be wrong, then I'll be wrong. Still, it still sucked for George Zimmerman to be able to walk away. Still sucks for these situations to still be rampant and to still be a part of history. And nothing gets said and done. I told somebody earlier today when I was talking, I said, I don't play cards, but when it's time to play it, I'm going to play the card. How many years have we as a people gone through hell and torture and lynching and not even considered human beings? Especially from a male perspective. There was a deeper level of respectability that went for our own, than our women, than our men. Why? Because he who was a slave owner would allow the black male's wife, mother, sister to raise their children, to feed their children. While at the same time, the same mother who's a wife to the black man. Do y'all see what I'm going? It's history and it's been happening. Say what you want. Where is our executive order? Everybody seems to have an executive order. Everybody seems to have a level of protection that a lot of us do not have. Where's our executive order? I believe everybody should, if you're being assaulted, if you're being discriminated against, and you have bearings, and you have, so okay, you want your human rights and all that stuff. Okay, come on. But where's our executive order? I ain't seen nobody, no president. I said it, no president establish an executive order specifically for us as the black people. I haven't seen it yet. Now, something have happened that I don't know of, correct me. But it take no long after the agents were being accosted. It took no time for a bill to be signed, an executive order. But where's our executive order? And then we get excited because people are black. And as presidents, we get excited because people are black as the VPs. But if certain people are not doing what they're supposed to do, and we make, you see what I'm saying? These are the things that's very disturbing to me. And if you're not disturbed by it, something is wrong. Should have never happened. I look at the situation with the little boy, Lyndon Boykins. I'm moving on. Looking at the little boy, Lyndon Boykins. I'm looking at that story. And unlike everybody else, unlike everybody, I get it. The whole situation with the little boy, Lyndon Boykins, that was killed. I am like his mother and his father. I'm like Anthony Boykins and his mother. I remember the mother's name. But that boy should not have lost his life for two reasons. Now, people say what they want to. I hope that just as the driver is being charged with murder, I want the police officers to be charged with murder as well. I want them to be arrested. I want them to be charged. I want them to be charged for going against the rule, for doing a pit maneuver while having knowledge. And in the beginning of it, the report had established that they said they didn't know there was children in the car. But when you saw the video, you actually saw that it was a very lit area. Gentleman was pulled over for speeding. Little Lyndon Boykins was in the car because not his grandmother, his parents were in Detroit for a funeral. He had just, according to the report, that he had just called his grandmother, said, "Grandmother, I'm on my way home," because he wanted to go with his friend to go somewhere. He got permission to go. He said he was on his way home. And then the driver of the car is pulled over, according to what is said, for speeding. Now, I get it. I get them being fearful. I get them being concerned. All of that. Had his son in the car and told his son to call 911 because he feared for his life. There were so many different police officers and police cars that were around him. I won't say around the car, but said there was too many around him. To the point that they begin to break the window, or officers are begin to break the window. Because I believe he refused to show them his driver's license. And they believe he had a DUI because he refused to take a breathalyzer. So that's one of the charges. He's charged for the driver of the car was accused of murder charges and a DUI. DUI because he refused to take a breathalyzer. Now I'm gonna tell you what my issue with this is. Because a lot of people say, because of the pit maneuver situation, and if that was a bunch of white kids in the car, that would not have been the situation. I'm a first side with the mother and father of this little boy that should have not lost his life, should have not been killed. The driver is at fault, first of all. He had a responsibility, watch this, not only to his child, but to somebody else's child. I'm going to say it again. The driver had a responsibility not only to his child, but for the child that was in his car. To say I was fearful for my life. I was fearful of what could have happened to these kids. I'm not going to say he was lying. I'm not going to say he was overdoing it, because when you experience certain situations that happen to some of our people, that is an understandable anxiety, an understandable fear that will come over you. But for you to turn around and to flee the scene is a problem for me, because you had somebody else's child in the car. And I'm not saying, because me, that's reckless. That's reckless. But I venture to say that just as he's accused, those police officers are accused too. You hit a pit maneuver. And the thing that is very concerning to me when you talk about this whole pit maneuver situation, that according to their law, you're not supposed to do a pit maneuver when children are in the vehicle. And so what did they do? They did a pit maneuver with the person in the vehicle. Make it make sense. And when I listened recently to the 911, the driver is saying they're trying to hit my car. They're trying to hit my car or pit my car or maneuver my car. Listen what he says, with my kids in the car. And to find out that the dispatch had told the officers there are children in the car. Yet you as an officer made it your decision. You made a decision to do a pit maneuver with children in the car. And it's just like I tell people all the time. When certain people are gangs or whatever are going after other people, a lot of time it's not the targeted individual. It's not the targeted individual. It's not the targeted individual that does it or gets the raw end of the stick. It's the innocent bystander. It's the one that was not around. It's the alcoholic. It's the drunk driver who walks away free, who walks away unharmed, who walks away with no damage, who walks away with life, and everybody else dies in the midst. Just like that nurse that happened over there on La Brea and what was that, Slauson? The innocent, a little boy loses his life because of the recklessness of the driver and the recklessness of the police officers. So all of them are responsible. Do y'all hear what I said? All of them are responsible. All of them are responsible. And it's saddening. So once again, without sounding redundant and repetitive, if the black man, if the daddy that drove the car is going to be accused of murder, these police officers need to be accused of murder as well. Because there's no justifiable reason knowing children were in the car. And you lied. And they lied. We couldn't see in the car. The video shows it was under a light. And you can't tell me, I don't care what you say. And trying to come up, when it's at nighttime and when it's dark, you can't tell the age or the height. Shut all that foolishness up. You're a liar, and the truth is not in you. Can't tell me that. So to turn around and put the light on in the car. I know one thing. You knew there was somebody else in that back seat. And from my understanding, I don't remember. Well, I can't say my understanding. I don't remember if the father was in the front and the two boys was in the back. But you ain't gonna tell me with those big. Listen. I have family members or people that I know that are in the police department, and those lights shine through. Those lights shine through. Those flashlights have the capacity to the ability to pierce through darkness. I was at an event a while back for San Pedro. What was it? Prom? I think it was prom. Was it prom? Yeah, I think it was. Was it? No, it wasn't prom. What was that event? I can't remember what the event was. But whatever the event was held at the camp, I had a flashlight that was able. And this is something that is the Los Angeles Unified School District gives you the permission to use. Let me tell y'all something. The light was able to see somebody on the side. What's my point? They saw somebody in that car. And then if you didn't, the dispatchers told you there are children in the car. There was no other way to stop that car but a pit maneuver. So now the sounds of blackness, the child's life is gone. Why is the child's life gone? The child's life is gone. Number one, because that daddy should have never fled at the scene, as fearful he was. Number two, mainly, the police officer when they come to the knowledge, they knew when that car pulled up, there was kids back there. And you do the pit maneuver, and now the kids are gone, or the child is gone. And the sad part about it, it's the child that got permission. Do you know how much guilt a parent is going to feel for allowing their child to go for something they did not even know that was going to happen? The last thing that the grandmother will remember is her grandson saying, "Grandmother, I'm on my way home." From a time of him, I forget what Linda was doing. I don't know if he was helping him do something or he went to go be a part of something. Either way it go, it's a sad situation. It's a sad situation. So the first thing I talked about was a man that was accused of rape, and he was going to be in prison for 48 years until because the lady had a dream. I dreamed that this man raped me. He came to me in my dream. You have the gentleman named Sensei Reed. Sensei Reed, they call him Zay Reed, who was killed. Because the man, white man, said self-defense, shot this boy in self-defense, and then accused him of saying I did it because he had a weapon, and there's no evidence of a weapon. Oh, did I tell y'all? Let me go back to let me go back to something about Lyndon Boykins. Y'all ready for this? Did you know that the parents, that happened on a Friday? When the boy lost his life was on a Friday. The parents did not know until Monday where their child was and did not know who identified the child. That the police, the GBI, only reached out to them later. They're just now, well, not just now, but on Monday, came to the knowledge, on that Monday, they came to the knowledge of where their child was and did not know where their child was and did not have the understanding of who identified their child because it wasn't his mother and it wasn't his daddy. I don't know about you, but that sounds like some cover-up stuff to me. I don't know about you, but that sounds like some cover-up stuff to me. The mother and father did not go identify the body of their own child. So who identified the body? It was the driver's wife who reached out to the parents, but they still had not received any type of information. None whatsoever from the department. Really? Nobody said anything? Nobody had a communication? This boy is deceased? Died? How y'all know his name is Lyndon Boykins? Who identified the body? I don't get it. So from Friday to that Monday, from the time the incident occurred, that's a problem. Say what you want to, y'all. That's a problem. It's a major, 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 major problem. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Now, y'all make it make sense to me. How in Georgia, the parents have no clue about their child or didn't identify the child. It doesn't make sense to me. And the parents are asking the question in the interview, why was he, the driver, considered so dangerous that he had to flip the car with them kids in there? What the Father Anthony says. Why did he, the trooper, make that decision? Why did he decide to flip that car knowing there was kids in there? Let me read what the report says. That Georgia State Patrol chase policy requires troopers to evaluate all possible variables, including whether there are children in the car they are chasing, before deciding whether to perform a pit maneuver, which suggests to me that even if there are no children in there, they still must evaluate every possible situation to even see if the pit maneuver is necessary. The policy says troopers must consider several specific methods of stopping a fleeing vehicle before they consider using the pit maneuver, and the troopers must quickly decide if a pit maneuver will place the occupants of the fleeing vehicle at greater risk of injury and death than what could happen if the troopers did not perform the pit maneuver, whether others on the road could face injury and death from the fleeing driver. Did y'all hear what I just read? Did y'all hear what I just read? Did y'all hear what I just read? Which now puts me in a mindset of, well, we're going to get rid of some more black people. I don't want to have that mindset. But what else? You're supposed to do everything within your power to try to stop every situation possible. Your policy, Georgia Patrol, your policy says that we got to do everything within our strength, everything within our power, everything within our ability to make sure everybody is safe. Watch this, even the ones on the road, so that if we do this, that no other persons, not even including the driver, not even including the people in the car that's fleeing or the vehicle that is fleeing, but everybody else who's potentially on the road that could suffer injury or death. So that suggests to me, based upon the policy, it wasn't even necessary. Because as an individual, you're supposed to make the proper decision. So I hope they go to jail. If the black guy who drove the car is charged for murder, they need to be charged for murder too. And I ain't changing my mind on that. Absolutely not. They should be charged. Absolutely. For that foolishness, for that dumb reasoning that they did. They should be charged as well. Stupid. And as I studied, Linda's parents found out Monday that the GBI had Linda's, but they said they weren't able to confirm that until now, and they've been promised it would be released to them this week so they can begin planning Linda's funeral. They said they are still trying to find out who identified Linda's body on Friday before they said they even found out he had been killed in the crash. So this is ridiculous and it's crazy and it's frustrating and it's disturbing. Kylie said these cops make these policies but don't even follow them. That makes no sense. And look, watch this. Even if we as Americans or citizens made these policies, they got to follow them. They have to follow them. This is ridiculous. And I want to repeat again. I fought as the parents. Everybody should be held responsible in this, including the father. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I'm not sorry. Just as this child, these parents are without their child, this child that survived with his daddy when the car was flipped, now he's about to be without his dad. And he should be without his dad because of the stupid decision that the father made to run out of fear. I get it. I understand it. Because I'm going to tell you this. If he fled, I'm going to tell you this. If he fled and they still did the exact same thing and it was his child in there, I would still say it was reckless. My wife says to me all the time, don't you do no reckless stuff with my kids in the car. If you want to drive reckless by yourself. Well, that's the same concept in this situation. He had somebody else's child in the car. He had somebody else's child in the car, and that child is dead. Lastly, governor. I want to talk about this governor. Lastly, I'm going to talk about Governor Ron DeSantis. That's the last thing I want to talk about tonight. Governor Ron DeSantis. Now, so In Florida, he has blocked, his administration has blocked an AP placement course for high school students on on African American studies. As I was talking to somebody earlier today, we didn't have no clue that there was a such thing as an AP African American study course. But 60 high schools across the United States have started offering this AP or advancement placement course on African American studies. So the College Board, which is a nonprofit organization, announced a pilot program in February. And the course is supposed to begin this month with the start of the new year. So the curriculum, listen to this, will be an interdisciplinary look at the history of civil rights, as well as African American music, literature, arts, the arts and humanities, political science, geography, science, and would explore the vital contributions and experiences of African Americans. Okay, so the renowned educator, Dr. Henry Gates Jr., said that the course is rigorously vetted and it should not be confused with critical race theory concept, which become a social and political lightning rod. So he said nothing is more dramatic than having a College Board launch, and I'm quoting him, an AP course in the field that signifies ultimate acceptance and ultimate academic legitimacy. He further goes and said that the AP African American Study is not CRT. It is not the 1619 project. It is a mainstream, rigorously vetted academic approach to a vibrant field of study. And the governor says no. Now I want y'all to listen to something. Let me go to it. Because see, what I don't know, and I've been looking for it, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with this, and if you're familiar with it and you have information on it, let me know. Because what I'm not familiar with and what I don't know is what I think is a 21-page documentation of what this course consists of, and the specifics. Because according to Florida law, that there is something within this AP African American Studies that is saying that it's not in, I'm gonna say, compliance with the Florida law. The College Board has not shared what is it within the African American, the AP African American Studies. They have not shared specifically as of today what it is that has caused Governor Ron DeSantis, I think I'm saying his name right, to reject the AP African American course in high school. It's not even a college thing. It's supposed to be in high school, But because, in Florida, they're against the whole CRT. They're against the whole CRT situation. And so this is the thing that disturbed me. Okay. The Florida Department of Education Office of Articulation said the course is, and I quote, inexplicably contrary to Florida law, watch this, and significantly lacks educational value. Did you hear what I just said? It is inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value. So they say in the future, should College Board be willing to come back to the table with lawful, historically accurate content, the Florida Department of Education will always be willing to open a discussion, the letter stated. Now, I don't know what was in there. I have no idea what they're talking about. And all they respond, the College Board respond is, we look forward to bringing this rich and inspiring exploration of African American history and culture to students across the country. So the rejection of this advancement placement African American studies course follows efforts by DeSantis to overhaul Florida's educational curriculum to limit teaching about critical race theory. So in 2021, remember, the state enacted a law that banned teaching CRT, which really explores the systematic racism in the United States and its continued impacts. They also banned the 1619 Project. Okay? By the New York Times to reframe American history around the arrival of slave ships on American shores. So then last year, DeSantis also signed a bill restricting how schools can talk about race with students. I don't know about you, but this is kind of this is disturbing. So here it is. So the College Board planned to offer this African American study for the first time. The course is being offered, as I forestated, in 60 schools across the country. And so the first AP African American Study exam was to be administered in the spring of 2025, according to the College Board website. I'm gonna go look into that further to see if they give anything. But like I said, I said 21. Y'all, excuse me, I stand corrected. The 81-page document labeled a preview for February 2022 provided a course framework covering key topics that extend from the medieval kingdoms of West Africa to the ongoing challenges and achievement of contemporary movement. So they've been working with higher education institutions to develop an African American program for a decade. So this has been something they've been working on for years, for at least 10 years. That's a decade. Okay, so this is where the challenge is for me. All right. And so this is not a theory, it's about teaching facts. And I think that's the issue for me. It's about teaching facts and not theory. And and when you start expressing, see, like I told somebody, and I'm gonna stop right here because my son needs to get my laptop. Let me tell y'all something. Sound of Blackness. Let me tell y'all something. It's a problem. And I'm gonna go back to what I started off when I said somebody that I know that teaches certain things was like, man, he said, man, it's like we damned if we do and we damned if we don't. It's a catch-22. And I said, we still got to keep teaching it. How are you, Governor DeSantis? How are you on this past Monday going to quote from Martin Luther King Jr. and then turn around and discredit this program? And I hope the College Board explains what is it in this 81-page documentation that would cause it. Because let me tell y'all something, as I told my buddy earlier, you cannot teach American history and not teach about Black people. It is impossible. You cannot do it. Did you hear what I said? I said you cannot do it. It is impossible. Our fingerprints is in this nation. Literally, figuratively, metaphorically. Our imprint, our fingerprint is in this nation. The White House would not be the White House without Black hands. That's historically proven. You cannot get away from that. Open heart surgery would not be what it was if it wasn't for us. Gas masks. Garrett Morgan, you wouldn't have that. You can celebrate Thomas Edison all day long and we appreciate electricity. But if there was no filament Within the light, you wouldn't be able to have what you see right now. Traffic signal. Remember, some ignorant librarian at the Compton Library years ago irritated me, Steve, where you get that from? That ain't true. Baby, you need to study your history. And it was like, and at that time, who was I there with? I think I was there with Keatrice at the time. Father, come down. No, we ain't coming down. She's stupid. I said, you're an ignorant woman. You're an ignorant woman. Where's the history? I said, prove it differently. Then who is it then? I told her who it was. You're ignorant. You're dumb. So everybody like, what's going on? She don't know what she's talking about. That's historically proven. We giving credit to people. What could we had no patents then? Patents were the things that black people have the opportunity to claim for their own selves. You celebrating Colonel Kentucky Fried Chicken. Had he not taken the recipe from a black man and put that black seasoning on it, you wouldn't have it. You giving credence to a white man for a Jack Daniels, and it was a black man that did that. And you're going to tell me that's not something that should be expressed and articulated and shared? Not you don't want to share that? And the minute you say something that is going to build the black community, build black education, build the black mind and the genius and the innovative and the creativeness of our people, the minute you start building it, then somebody want to shut you down. And then they want to call you discriminatory. And then they want to call you, all lives matter. All lives should matter. But at this point, my life, my people has been the one that has suffered the longest. Didn't matter whether you were straight black, gay black, fat black, skinny black, bald head, forehead black, light skin. We suffered as a people. Didn't matter if he was a black Pentecostal, a black Methodist, a black Catholic. Didn't matter. We suffer as a people. They didn't care. They didn't care back in that time. They didn't care. You said, and that has to be taught. But what do you want? You're going to stand up in opposition against it. Why? Because you don't want real history? But you want the stories to keep talking about how we was enslaved, but you don't want the stories to be told about what we've contributed to this community. You don't want the story to be, you want to be reminded how we were slaves and how we was brought over and how we had to be taught to read and all that type of stuff. You don't want to deal with the truth that some of us know how to read before we came over here. That's historically proven. You don't want to show the beauty of Africa. You want to show the places where people, their bellies are protruded. You want to show the ghetto-ness, if you will, of a continent that is full of beauty and culture. Because you think that, because certain people think that if we just, we just dribble, but we got a brain. We have scientists. We have doctors. We have attorneys. We have business people, nurses, engineers, judges, people in the law. Come on. That's not going to succumb and be dehumanized by the culture in which it lives in. And when people like us start talking like this, then it's like, oh, there they go with that talk. Well, we got to talk that talk. We got to walk that walk. Because if governor of Georgia can make this decision, every governor should be upset. I mean, every person in Georgia ought to be upset. know people from Morehouse got to say something. And I can't wait to hear what Dr. Jamal Harrison Bryant got to say about this. I can't wait to hear with what's the mayor that just got there? Oh my goodness. He beat Walker. I can't think of War. Well, I can't think of that man's name. Shoot. Warsaw. Oh my goodness, I can't think of his name. What is his name? Oh my goodness. I can't think of the mayor that just beat Herschel Walker. I think he's in Georgia. I'm so bothered. I think I probably got my states wrong. I think he's in Georgia. Warnock. That's what it is. I know. And he's in Georgia. Raphael Warnock. Come on. I have to go look it up. I know I have my wards right. Y'all get what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. It's crazy. Sounds of Blackness. We're valuable. I hope they fight this thing. I really do. I really hope with everything in our strength and power. I hope Warnock. I hope he fights it. I hope everybody that's in Georgia, who's out there, Stacey Adams, I think is out there. I hope everybody fights it. I hope I hear a whole lot from Jamal Harrison Bryant and people from Morehouse College. I hope a whole bunch of people get together and battle this and come up against this foolishness that's right in their own state. Because folks don't want truth. And if we think it's happening in other places, it's going to happen over here. All right? Don't lose your sound as Black people. Sounds of Blackness. I know some of y'all never heard me go this route before, but this is where I'm going. All right? This is where I'm going. All right? This is where I'm going. You know. I'm tripping. Let me change myself. I done got so excited. I done put two different states together. DeSantis, that man is in Florida. He ain't in Georgia. But I'm hoping that the people that are in Florida, the NAACPs, the Black Lives Matter, and all of that are in Florida. I couldn't remember the people that's in Florida who has major impact. So, but I still hope Jamal Harrison Bryant said something about this situation. I hope the great minds in Florida will say something, because it's important. It's definitely, it's definitely needed. To change. And I don't know what any of them have said, but I hope somebody said something. I hope the Black Leadership Summit, they got a Black caucus out there. I hope, that somebody says something in Florida and make some noise about it. Because when you say it is inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value, that's a problem. That's a major problem. So, yeah, so that's a major problem. All right. All right. Part of my rant. Father, I thank you for this conversation tonight. Help us to be about that life. All right, y'all. I'm out. Let's remember the sounds of blackness is important. Hope y'all enjoy this. Have a good night. Got so excited. I was saying that Morehouse is in Florida and it's in Georgia. That's how this stuff is upsetting me. I don't like it. All right. Good night, y'all.